Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning, where we've been reading his wonderful book, The Selfish God. And today we're on chapter 14. It's starting to come together and make more sense for sure, which I think was his first subtitle. And he's working fervently to try to refine it and make it a work that's publicly tested and publicly usable. So I'm honored that to have him share with us live. So let's just jump right in and see how the rabbi's doing. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz. We're going to turn it over to you. You've got the host capabilities. So yeah, take it away, sir.
Thank you very much, Dan. Welcome, everybody. Adasa and Rabbi. And we're going to start chapter 14, as I said in the email that I spread out. That's not going to help. Sorry. This is a continuation of, I'm going to share the screen and come over here. Okay, so that should be spreading the news, should be on your screen. Right? Okay. So spreading the news. As in all human endeavors, Messiah will need helpers and supporters to disseminate the proper teachings and guidance. This is, and always has been, the function of the Jewish people on the world stage. Not for self-aggrandizement, but simply as friendly service people who want to help, who enjoy helping, and who know how to help. As mentioned much earlier, modern Israel's reputation as the startup nation might give way to the many humanitarian programs which are fostering a new reputation as the help out nation. What I find surprising is that the messianic operation will be centralized in Israel. I would have thought that the vibrant Jewish communities that have blossomed around the world would be perfect for spreading the teachings worldwide. Also surprising is the news that animal sacrifices will be reintroduced as an integral part of the temple service. My impression is that a lot of people will be repelled by what they consider to be a step backward. Pondering these issues brought to mind another question. If the Messiah is so successful in spreading Torah wisdom to all people, wouldn't everyone want to convert to Judaism? And then we have to bring them all to Israel, because remember last time one of the tests or qualifications for Israel, for Messiah, is that he bring all the Jews back to Israel. So that's a never-ending battle there, if everybody's converting. So once again, persistent questioning led me to an insight that paints a more realistic picture. Temple service will not include all Jews, and never did, only the Cohens. To most of the temple site is forbidden to non-Cohens, and most of the sacrificial activities are performed by the Cohens out of sight of anyone else. It's not a spectator event. Even the Cohens are mostly absent from the temple because they take turns working in the temple, only once every 24 weeks, basically 2 weeks a year. The rest of the time, they live scattered around the country with a mandate to learn and teach the rest of Torah, not the temple part, to the rest of the population. Modeling themselves after the animals they sacrifice, Cohens sacrifice their normal human yearnings for an easy life for the sake of becoming living models of Torah behavior and wisdom. In order to keep Cohens focused on helping others, they were never awarded land to farm. So they had to rely on tithes from everyone else, the holy food mentioned earlier. Although all non-Cohen farmers are required to dispense tithes, they are free to choose the Cohen they like. This system naturally encouraged Cohens to go out and teach so they could foster close personal ties with the rest of the population who would enjoy supporting them. Relying on tithes for income might not be feasible for the Cohens if only part of the world's Jewish population was present in Israel. Manna will not fall from heaven. That's long gone. Non-Cohen Jews will still have to farm the land or otherwise produce wealth in the normal manner. The more Jews in Israel producing wealth, the better they will be able to sustain their spiritual mentors, the Cohens. That is one practical reason a preponderance of Jews have to be in Israel. Another one is as follows. Animal sacrifices don't inspire everybody. That is not surprising because nothing inspires everybody, but everybody can be inspired. If all the vibrant Jewish communities from around the world can be transplanted with their talents, resources, languages, and customs, and then be reconfigured and integrated into Israeli society, a process that they have been perfecting since the establishment of the modern state, then other countries can also learn to integrate and or accommodate their own ethnic minorities with each other. The better they create those relationships, the more positively they will relate with God. The coronavirus has forced everyone to connect electronically. The tools were there before, but despite the pent-up concern for the environment, they were not being used nearly as much as post-coronavirus. Computers consume a lot less energy than cars, planes, and other means of travel. They also spew off no visible pollution. Despite this easily available fix, it took a virus to persuade people to change their behavior. I cite these as an example of how God prods us towards creative solutions. Perhaps God meant environmental concerns to spur us to greater use of electronic communication. But when we didn't respond with enough haste, God deployed a virus to get the job done. Now that we've grown accustomed to communicating electronically, it is easier to see how the Jewish people could teach and guide others from their headquarters in Israel. Israel itself, with its many transplanted communities, could be a powerhouse model for how to do it. Perhaps facilitating outreach from Israel will turn out to have been God's hidden agenda in bringing the virus. But however the Messianic age unfolds, it will work. God will coax it to work without removing our free-willed creativity. Apparently, not all the required pieces are in place yet. Perhaps we will learn how to employ our brains more fully, maybe with drugs, or maybe with AI, artificial intelligence. Science has helped us achieve so much, but has also misled us, as I wrote earlier. Perhaps God plans to have Messiah put science on the right track. That would give us quite an opportunity to create positively. I mentioned before that God wants to be fair. God can do whatever he wants, fair or not, of course. But God wants to have God wants to have a relationship with us, which requires our willing participation. That will only happen if we see God as fair. The whole crux of any relationship is an agreed rate of exchange between the parties, whether it be an exchange of product, service, ideas, or time spent. Fair is a perfect choice for a one-word description of a desirable relationship. If God was not seen as fair, we would abandon the relationship. Messiah's leadership will be a magnificent booster shot that will prime everybody to relate to God. People alive then will still have to put in the effort, but when they do, the payoff will be astounding. It will be similar to opening a business in the middle of a gold strike. Everybody does well. Carrying this analogy further, when gold rush people finally retire, they will be able to do so in style with all the resources they need. Similarly, people who live during the Messiah's leadership will relate to God with deeper wisdom, better self-control, and more positive values. These qualities will prepare them to embrace their new life in the world to come and enjoy it. In short, they'll be ready to retire from this life and start a new one. But what about all the people who died before the Messiah arrived? Many of them lived through terrible times that prevented almost any kind of spiritual achievement. Such people won't have developed themselves to much of any degree. How will they relate to God? They won't know how. Come to the resurrection of the dead. This obvious question leads right into the ancient teaching about the dead coming back to life. Some understand this to mean that they will die here and come back to life in heaven or hell. I'll discuss later the Jewish version of heaven, which is the world to come. But some insist this ancient teaching means the dead will come back to life in this world. I don't dismiss as unbelievable the idea of the dead being resurrected, because many unbelievable things have entered reality. Interactive video gaming and free zooming with anyone anywhere in the world are two examples that would astound previous generations. So instead of scoffing at the idea of resurrecting the dead, I humbly ask instead, how and why would that be part of this world's reality? I'll answer how further below, but first, why? Why would God feel the need to resurrect the dead? The reason is to be fair to all the people who never had a chance. God has to be seen as fair. The original life of all the people who were burdened by poverty and ignorance must have been only to test whether they deserved to get a better chance. Did they make sufficient use of the meager opportunities pre-Messiah times offered? If so, then they deserve another round with maximum opportunity for personal growth. They'll come alive again in the Messianic era, armed with their experience of squeezing the most out of the least. With that and the Messiah's leadership, they will be able to grow as much as anyone ever could, maybe more. It is only fair to provide this growth opportunity because they will need, as we all do, tremendous preparation to relate to God, the creator of all. Widespread calamities. The fairness aspect of resurrecting the dead can mollify the deeply troubling aspect of widespread calamities. Most troubling about widespread calamities are the deaths of those who did not deserve to die, the innocent. There must be innocence because it doesn't seem feasible that all those caught in a flood, fire, or airplane crash deserve to die. The unfairness is very troubling unless we could expect a second life and a better time. That would balance out a lot of inequities. This is not to deny the many devastating repercussions that accompany the death of the innocent. The pain is usually immeasurable, all the more so when the tragedy strikes without warning. On the other hand, it's not without precedent. Life is regularly full of painful events. We dread them. We dread them so much we can't talk about them. But at the end of all the silent debates within our souls, the only idea that makes such tragedies bearable is the conviction that fairness will prevail in the end. The promise of the dead coming back to life for a better chance satisfies this need for God to be seen as fair. The other troubling outcomes are not as final as death, but are still devastating. I refer now to the loss of wealth, health, and or relationships. It's hard to imagine how such sudden and widespread tragedies could be deserved. I answer that disquiet as follows. The creativity that God is hoping to coax out of us will often not emerge unless we need to overcome something unusual. The unusualness is the very thing that elicits creativity. Widespread calamities fit that bill. That is why people don't need to, quote, deserve, end quote, a calamity to justify the appearance of one. Calamities are just another feature of life that pushes us to succeed where we would have coasted. Actually, not just another feature, a necessary one to stop our coasting. Understandably, we bemoan the tragedies befall us, but look at it from a different angle. Whatever creative solution we muster in life will become the center of attention in God's court during the final judgment. That is what the court, God, was waiting for. And if we were so devastated that we prayed, asking God for help to deal with the calamity, the resulting relationship with God will be yet another court focus, even more fussed over. Final judgment will actually be a final appreciation of what we accomplished. But is it fair to resurrect the dead? Wouldn't the dead have already become acquainted with the divine afterlife and consequently not want to come back to this life with all its doubts and heartaches? Supporting these questions is a whole genre of literature and YouTube videos by people who have had near-death experiences, NDE. Some estimate that it has happened to millions of people currently alive. The near-death title is a little misleading because for a while they were clinically dead, not nearly. These people report otherworldly experiences. Whether they were real or not is hotly debated by scientists, as summarized in this 10 minutes YouTube titled Scientists Finally Try to Explain Near-Death Experiences. After the NDE, most remember experiencing God, or another familiar name such as Jesus, Allah, or the like, who bathed them with such overwhelming love, acceptance, and a feeling of well-being that they loathed abandoning it in order to come back to life. In light of that, would resurrection be fair, yanking them back here away from that beatific experience? That question leads me to ponder as follows. Maybe beatific NDE, near-death experience, is only experienced by those who will come back immediately and advertise, sort of, what's in store for us. But those destined to stay dead and come back only later may feel nothing while dead. When they come back, they won't even realize that they had been dead. It will be like regaining consciousness after being anesthetized. For those who have never been anesthetized, it's not like waking up from sleep. Upon waking from sleep, you realize some time has elapsed. In contrast, regaining consciousness from being under gives no feeling of time lapse. In fact, it takes some evidence to convince you otherwise. Maybe waking up from the dead will be the same sensation. No sensation at all while dead might be exactly right for those who died achievementless, because self-awareness while dead would not have brought any joy of accomplishment, nor sorrow, nor punishment. There's nothing to feel. Their lack of achievement was not their fault. Circumstances just didn't allow much. But since they did manage not to corrupt themselves too badly either, coming back makes it fair. They get a second chance. Further conjectures. Others who did achieve much and did enjoy the consequent self-awareness might be willing to come back for the sake of helping others, even though that requires a sacrifice. That itself might be the attraction, to once again exercise the altruism, the sacrifice of altruism they developed in themselves. Sure, it would be unfair to them, except they don't mind. This readiness to help others might explain why God gives select people near-death experiences, so that they could and would publicize their positive experiences and give others a hint of the reward to come, but just a hint. As long as the ball is in our court, God will not provide overwhelming evidence. The foregoing scenario is predicated on the sudden resurrection of people who have been long dead. Nobody has ever asked me if the resurrected will be zombies, but some people have asked. I guess the zombies, that's too recent. That hasn't entered their lexicon or talking to me. But they have asked, at what age will the dead be resurrected? Will they come back at the age that they died or in the prime of life? Some ask, will they come back naked or clothed? I'm not sure if these are facetious questions by the scoffers or innocent questions by the naive. People coming back to life will be a miracle of the highest order. We will all be stunned beyond questions. The whole world will be in shock and quite ready to undertake whatever belief and behavior a compelling leader will promote. That leader will no doubt be the real Messiah, because God would not bring back the dead to allow a false Messiah to succeed. Or the resurrection may take place after the time of the Messiah's leadership. That would be a time when all humanity had already committed itself to creative pursuits guided by Torah mitzvahs, as the Messiah had led. Then the resurrection will no longer be a surprise of any kind. People will be waiting for it and will be primed to shepherd the newly resurrected into Torah observance, just as everyone else has already done. Now the resurrected will get their second chance, this time in an environment supporting their spiritual success. Everyone helping each other grow in Torah knowledge and practice would be a crowning glory of the Messianic age. Or maybe the resurrection will not be noticeable at all. That would be the case if resurrection takes place by having the soul of the dead be reborn as a new baby. There's mention of such in the mystical writings of Kabbalah. It's called Gilgul, which literally means rolling over. The soul rolls from one body to another. In other circles, it's called reincarnation. There is some evidence of this already occurring. Some people describe events of past lives, either through some hypnosis or other mind-altering procedures. Under this scenario, the former life is a subconscious memory to be brought forward into conscious memory at some point, or not. This kind of resurrection could qualify for the previously mentioned fair shot at a second chance as follows. Each human, even though they're in a new body, seems to be a whole new person, still be a second chance. Because each human is conceived by God as a package of abilities and disabilities in a unique formula, different from all other humans. Each human is tasked to become the best possible creator that can be, second level to God, as described earlier. Some formula package, meaning humans, will fail to create properly. An abject failure means the formula had to be totally erased from the database as a failed experiment. A lesser failure means the formula fulfilled its mandate close enough that it gets resurrected as a different human for a second chance. The fact that second chance humans may never remember most of their past life, if any part at all, does not make them substantially different from everyone else. After all, who remembers everything they did yesterday? Most of life is forgettable. The key memories are the ones that created something for us, a new insight, a new determination, a new talent. Those will always come to the fore and satisfy the goal of becoming the best possible creator we can, second level to God. In the end, although the arrival of the Messiah and or the resurrection of the dead may surprise us, we will adjust. Neither event will change how we live. We will still want to eat, drink, find shelter and companionship, and learn in order to know. We will still have to strive in these endeavors, especially the learning part, in order to grow and accomplish whatever we can before we die. Looking back after death, we will realize that all these efforts slowly blossomed into exquisite self-affirmation to be described next as the world to come. Okay, I finished.
Very interesting, Rabbi. Very interesting.
So,
I was reading an article today on epigenetic reprogramming. The notion that scientists today are experimenting with resetting the age of a tissue at the subatomic molecular level, embryonic programming, resetting it so that the age of tissue responds as if it was 20 years old. And so science is probing into these sort of matters, and when you get to the notion of the resurrection of the dead, who's know what to say. The question that I have is where is consciousness, the current consciousness? And when you think of the internet today and cloud storage that we see, I mean, I've been doing broadcasts now for a number of years with the Noahide World Center, and I have terabytes of cloud stored videos. The point being, what constitutes a person's soul? I mean, what comprises you, and who everybody is. These are the big questions that I'm sure will be answered and all pooled together and brought together. The notion of it not being an actual original resurrected body would pool in a question of why do the Jewish people not permit cremation if they were going to be born into a different body. There's a lot of things that could be brought up, but very interesting chapter for sure.
I would argue that we don't allow cremation because we need to keep the bodies for future use, because there's all kinds of things that can happen to the body. Can be split up, and who's to say that if
can't be reconstructed from a dust molecule? Yeah.
It's not important. It's not important that the body is not important. It's the personality. It's the talents, the knowledge.
Yeah. Who are you? Yeah. Your memories and your data,
the relationships, and so on. What have you made yourself into? Which is really like you.
We even touched on the idea of you mentioned about briefly on the idea of the mechanical. I mean, you're getting more and more artificial intelligence. Yeah, where's the melding come together? There's a lot of people that think along those lines of,
Right.
human and mechanical meshing of
So,
some
so
sort.
with science, I mean, all these things that were, people just discover, it's not going to happen. What are you talking about? Crazy. We're trying to do it ourselves. Never mind God. So it's not so outlandish. And there's so many different ways. There's so much we don't know. It's so amazing that every few years somebody comes along and says, well, we finished. We've discovered everything there's to discover. It's just, you know, mind-boggling how much more they find there is to learn. Did you have something you wanted to say, Ron? No? Okay. So,
I do.
yes,
I'm
go ahead.
Hadassah.
Yeah, Hadassah.
Are we not made in the image and likeness of God?
In the image of which?
Are we not made in the image and likeness of God?
In the image of God. Yes, Selam Elohim. So I dealt with that in earlier.
Right.
Um,
That
um,
doesn't. That's not the body. That's the spirit, as I
mm,
would understand it. And I think our relationship, of course, means to relate.
right.
So our minds need to relate to the mind of God, and that's why we have learning,
That's right.
Torah, which
Exactly it.
means learning.
It's your mind, your personality, your subset, your subconscious of God's consciousness. So you're a subset in that sense. And
Yes, that's correct. But it grows with our
of course,
teaching in the Torah. From the Torah, we learn more and more the mind and consciousness of
the
God.
origin is here. Can God grow?
Can God grow? God can do anything.
So can God grow? Does God grow?
Yes,
How does he grow?
he can do anything. Does he? That's the question. I don't know, but
Right.
he has the ability to.
So so my answer is God grows by changing his mind. That's why Rabbi
Oh, that's true. That's very true. I
or
thought that's right. I hadn't thought about that, but I knew that. I just didn't come up with it just now. But
okay,
that's true. God can change his mind, and he does
right? I'll
for
give
our
you
sake,
I'll
for
give
our
you
sake, through our
uh,
prayers.
and here's what I here's another um avenue in that thinking that I want to open up, and that is that God grows because He has relegated to us our free choice. So we think for ourselves, we come up with new ideas. We can come up with an idea that God hadn't contemplated. He, of course, has control whether to let it into the system or not. But once he lets it in, it's our idea. It's not his. He gave us the ability to think up something new. So now he's growing because he's incorporating the ideas that we brought to the table.
I'm
They're
not
all
sure if he's growing. I think he's changing, but I
well.
don't think he's growing. I thought he knew everything before it. He knows the future. He knows what we're going to do. He knows what our choices are going to be.
So this was an earlier discussion that he doesn't know what our choices are going to be. He knows what to do about our choices, whatever they are.
And
So
how do we know that
that's
about him?
because that makes sense. The other one doesn't. If he knows their choices, then they're not free. If they are free, then he doesn't know because we could choose differently. So that's an old problem, and I solve it by saying God knows everything we could possibly choose and what to do about it. So he's in complete control. He's always in complete control. That's the main thing. He's in complete
Mhm.
control. He doesn't have to
That's
know.
your discussion is earlier in the book.
Yeah, that's an
Oh,
earlier.
I'll look for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially the first three chapters.
I'll look for that. I'll try to get a hold of it and read it.
Okay, well,
You
That'd
can
be
review
great.
the video. Yeah, you can review the video. I can pull up the date. Hold on, let me just. I've
Oh,
got.
that'd be wonderful. You could send me a link.
Hang on, I'll give you the date. I can't stop my current stream
Oh, of
to.
course not. Of course not. You can do that at will anytime.
We
I'm not in a
started
hurry.
February 13th, Hadassah. February
Oh,
13th. If you go to the
okay.
Noahide World Center and you look up the video starting from February 13th,
Okay.
yeah, and then it goes to the 19th, 20th.
That's great. That's
Yes.
really great. Thank you for that.
I'll get them all into a playlist soon.
I'm learning a lot. Thank you.
Okay.
Rabbi or Ronald, so good to have you with us. Ronald, down in Australia. Either you folks have any questions? We're almost at our time, so we thought we'd give you a shot at any questions for the Rabbi before we call it quits for today.
I'm good.
Robbie wrote a thing, KEWL. What does that stand for?
Cool. A different way to spell cool.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we both learned something on that one.
A cool way to spell cool. A cool way to spell cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. Okay. Speak to you guys next Sunday night.
Nice presentation. Thank you.
All right.
Shalom.
So that's
Shalom.
our Zoom daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning for today. Join us on Sunday night. We'll be back with chapter 15. We still got a couple more, and I think the Rabbi is going to wind up this book, and it's going somewhere. So it's exciting to see. Till then, have a wonderful Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Right.
Shalom.